Welcome to the Film Lover Show. Since I won't be giving film news tomorrow, probably, I'm going to hit you up with a review that we're going to do of a film that's up for 3 Oscar awards called Up in the Air. I'm your host, Tyrone Rubin.
Hi, I'm Sousa, Tyrone's friend.
Famous director. My favourite South African director. So I feel honoured and privileged to have him here talk about the film.
Stars George Clooney, basically a businessman who's employed by a company that hires people to fire people, which is quite an interesting sort of plotline or what have you. And his whole life is spent up in the air, essentially, as the title tells you. And as a result of this lifestyle, he becomes almost addicted to it and starts pushing everyone important out of his life, or who is important in his life, or should be out of his life. And along his travels meets someone who's quite similar to him and also spends most of her time up in the air and finds a common ground with her, and without sort of giving the whole thing away. They sort of have an arrangement together. At the same time comes a young protege,
Vera Farmiga.
Yeah, Vera Farmiga
from
she comes along, and this little upstart comes into the company and kind of shakes things up with a whole new angle of how to fire people instead of doing things one-on-one. Brings some technology into the equation and introduces...
Like threatens George Clooney's...
Yeah, threatens George Clooney's little bubble. Yeah, his bubble. It's his comfort zone. It's everything to him. And he challenges this. As a result, lands up having to train her up. And
they spend the film,
Yeah, they spend the majority of the film travelling together. And, bonds and things are formed from there. But without giving too much away. I think that's the crux of it, essentially.
So I guess the relationship with Kendrick, who's the lady you spoke about in the beginning, and then his relationship with this other actress, Vera Farmiga, who's a young actress, where there's no... Obviously, it's almost like a father-daughter...
Absolutely, it's kind of something that, the sad element to it is there's something he'll never have.
I thought the characters lived and breathed. I thought the performances were excellent. George Clooney and his boss, played by Jason Bateman, and the 2 female characters, the one younger one who threatens it just felt believable, and I don't think the performances could have been any better for that. I mean, not to say that they're going to win Oscars, because obviously they're up against stronger competition, but for their job, I mean, I know Reitman wanted Clooney.
Pitch perfect, and I think that the point is, and I suppose we'll speak about the director that in his films, but something about this film was essentially that, and it was inspiring for young filmmakers to see that at the bottom line is sometimes all you need is that performance, those performances, and nothing else really.
Believable.
Yeah,
I mean, it's weird because George Clooney, and he's an actor, but I mean, you succumb to believing that he's this character, and he plays it so well. That's not him in real life, and so the performances, obviously, we pretty much agree they were outstanding. Okay, so we'll talk about the director, Jason Reitman, whose big films before were Thank You for Smoking and Juno. Juno and Thank You for Smoking weren't set in the real world. Like, it's almost like a fantasy.
Yeah, I think all of the characters, as like you say, all the performances were good, and for what reason? I think Clooney. I think one of the reasons he wanted Clooney is Clooney always takes things and is able to make the character a bit bolder, but still make it believable. Like, you don't question the reality of it, or the emotion's still there that you feel from the character.
It's a very entertaining film. I mean, even though it deals with darkish subject matter of people getting fired,
it didn't feel like a documentation on a person's life.
Especially Juno. Juno was in this. Even the way they spoke in Juno, in terms of the dialogue, and Thank You for Smoking.
I think he's got three.
Yeah,
3 nominations for
the script.
32-year-old.
The film,
and I mean, not easy. I know a few people that like to follow in another person, especially a family member's footsteps, that has done so much for Hollywood and the film industry as a total. It must be, it is even a bigger achievement, from my perspective.
I did love the film. My only critique in it not being perfect is it was highly successful in terms of its entertainment value. I felt it very entertaining. I loved the soundtrack. of the film and the music and the performances, everything about it.
I just have to say one thing about the film, and for me, like the most impressive thing was the subject matter. And even though we deal with as human beings, we deal with things better where there's sort of a humour related to it. Because if you can laugh at your flaws or your setbacks, then you get through life easier. And the whole thing is obviously revolving around unemployment, which we know 2009 and pray God 2010 isn't the same. But, obviously the recession, which was very relevant to I think the whole planet. And to make a film towards the end of it now and looking back, which is kind of what it did. It's sort of a reflecting back on what potentially happened last year in terms of the unemployment became such a task that for many employers they had to obviously hire somebody because it was too much to deal with. In any case, I'm also varying, but I think the point is that the choice of film was on point, and I think that is a big reason for a success, is that as us human beings we can relate to it. And I think for me that was my number one thing that I picked out about it. The ultimate conclusion is go see it because you'll relate to it on any level, and it's entertaining at the end of the day, and that is why we go see movies, is for entertainment, first and foremost, I guess, and whatever entertains you. And I think as far as a majority decision goes, most people will enjoy that film. I haven't had any bad reviews myself from any person that's been.
And the critics also loved it.
You might have one or two little issues, but overall, go see it. I think go see it in a cinema. It might be too late, but if you haven't seen it in a cinema, if it is available in your cinema, which it is in certain cinemas, go see it in a cinema. It's just nice to laugh with people around you, because it obviously does have very
cool. Well, you loved it. I loved it. Cool. Thank you, Grant.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Cheers.
Ciao.
Fuck.
You did like a 4 hour.
You definitely don't have to do it.
No, well, afterwards. No, I'm not doing a cup.